Whoa. Hey, guys.
Hey,
Good
What's up?
evening.
So, what were you guys just talking about?
well, it's like I was glad to finally find out that the Castlevania Advance release that has been rumored for a while is actually a real thing, and I'm playing
Mm-hmm.
that now that I've like finished Neo: The World Ends with You. But
Mm-hmm.
Myron, you're playing through what now?
Actually, he was talking about
Met-
Metroid.
Metroid Dread, and just to briefly touch on it, I'm a diehard Metroid fan, and I agree with you, Jason. I pre-ordered the digital edition because that's a game I play Metroid a lot. Like Super Metroid is probably the game I play like the most. I revisit a lot, and I can see myself with this game. I myself do want to get the special edition. Hopefully that restocks. So this is going to be something I'm probably going to double dip on, in the sense of, I'll have it digitally, but I will buy the special edition because I want that art book and the collector cards. Briefly, outlining the history of the series because, this is supposed to be the last game in the series to wrap up Samus's arc regarding, the Metroids and Planet Zebes and all that. So
This
I'm
is
gonna double.
Metroid 5, in other words.
Yep, this is Metroid 5, so I'm gonna definitely double dip on this one. I don't care.
Yeah, it's like well,
Double dip.
yeah, it's like I'm gonna wait a bit on this just to see if if the special edition does come back in stock because like I just finished, as I said, I just finished up playing Neo: The World Ends with You, and I'm going through the Castlevania Advance trilogy. But before that, I also still wanted to check out No More Heroes 3. So it's like that's like I figure it's like I've got enough time to like see if like the the Metroid Dread Special Edition does come back in stock, and if it doesn't, well, I'll just buy it just like everyone else and just play it like everyone else. So there you go. But like I love me some good Metroid. I mean, like I wouldn't be playing the Castlevania Advance like trilogy if I didn't. So
Right, and I'm gonna get this collector's edition regardless of how I have to get it. And kind of segueing in the conversation we're going to be getting to in a few minutes, I signed up for Paramount Plus. Excuse me, I signed up for Paramount Plus, because we've been watching Lower Decks. We've been talking about Lower Decks for past year now, and I think looking deeper into the content that Paramount Plus has to offer, I have to say that the Nickelodeon catalog alone is what made me kind of like do the jump and stick with
Huh.
it. And in doing this subscription, I did watch the Console Wars documentary, which is something I've always wanted to,
oh
check
yeah,
out for myself.
I watched that too. It's like in fact I actually showed it to my parents as well, and they actually liked it too.
Yep,
Huh.
and out of all three of us in this talk about Nintendo right now, one thing Nintendo is good at is sucking your money. I think a lot of us have double, triple, quadruple dipped in a lot of franchises. Like, I'm not sure about you guys, but you can probably count how many times you've purchased Super Mario Brothers or Super Mario 64, Zelda, whatever. But I truly do think they make good quality games to where like if I have to pay for it again, as long as it's not like outrageous, like I don't mind having it as part of my collection. So yeah, Metroid is one of those franchises where like we don't get enough to where like yeah, I'm gonna double dip and not be too pissed off about it.
Yeah, it's like I gotta admit that like Nintendo is like the one company where if they offered like their own like like game streaming service, then I would definitely sign up for that because Nintendo makes the best games. But they're also kind of like seem to be doing that, with Nintendo Switch Online, at least for this generation. Because hey, they just announced that hey, it's like Nintendo 64 and Genesis games are coming to it as well at an expanded price. It seems.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
So that's what they do. But regardless of that, getting back to the Paramount Plus subscription,
Mhm.
uh and Lower Decks, like after watching these past couple episodes, like I I I I'm glad I subscribed to this, and I'm glad I
Yeah.
kind of have that accessibility. Like I know when John originally introduced me to the series, I bought the Blu-ray, and I love the first season to where like, yeah, I can't wait for more of this series. I'll wait. I can't wait to, the next Blu-ray comes out. I'm still gonna buy this to have it as part of my permanent collection because you just never know when the internet's not going to be available or if you are even going to continue on with this streaming service. But after watching these past 2 episodes that we just did, I have to say this series continues to be fun, and it does kind of entice me and want me to kind of like, get into the Star Trek lore a little bit more in the sense of like, I grew up on Generation and I know of Generation, but I can't recall episodes or remember a whole lot as much as you guys can when you say, oh, I recognize this reference, or oh, like this is a nod to, this episode. I'm not quite there yet, but I have to say, like, coming just like the console wars between Nintendo and Sega, there is also the nerd wars between, Trekkies and Jedis.
So I'm gonna tell you right now, ridiculous.
Yeah,
ridiculous.
I
My universe, they can both exist, not in the same universe. So but I did like these episodes. Generally speaking, I didn't have any problems with like the references in them. Shax is back. Why? That's one of the mysteries in the episode. Boimler is he's kind of like not being recognized as an ultimate kind of disgrace. The computer won't recognize him.
Yeah, it's like I see what you're saying there, but I think that's kind of like falls in like one of my like criticisms for these episodes. But go on, sir.
All right. Well, no, I want to hear the criticisms as well, but
okay,
just as a part of the like whole episode synopsis, it's like Tendi and Mariner, they go on a little mission for the dock. So get the scratching post, and we get a special guest. It's Tom Paris. It's played by, I forget the actor's name.
Yeah, Robert Duncan McNeil.
Yeah, thank you, Robert Duncan McNeil. Thank you. And he appears in there. So I guess that's that's kind of a lot of what's going on. They ask, it's like this. They find out that this thing is a scratching post that they have to get.
A sex scratching post.
A sex scratching
post. That's what we're made to think initially at all.
Yeah, right, exactly. So there's it's kind of a lot of things, and then you also see some of the Orion, like this Orion, I think it's a colony or something like that. I forget, and by the way, so one of the references here is that in Enterprise. In that is Star Trek Enterprise. That's the one with Scott Bakula, everyone. There's a couple episodes kind of established that in Orion society, the females are the ones who control males. Like they have they have this power over them. Like they can't resist it. They can't resist them. They generally can't resist. Like no males can resist them, but the Orion males definitely can't. And it's like in one of the episodes, they're like, "Yeah, oh, you finally figured it out. We have no choice. They basically control us." So it's kind of an interesting little thing, and that's why you see Tendi like being all, I don't know, how do you want to put it, like
dominating.
Yeah, dominant. Because you don't, you're like, hey, what's going on here? But so yeah, it's kind of interesting. They decided to keep that there, and it turns into a little chase and all that. So, and of course, the B plot here is Rutherford tries to figure out why how did Shax come back?
Yeah, it's like that I actually kind of like, because like once it's eventually revealed, it's kind of like, oh yeah, like, there's kind of like a reason, but it's like it's like specific. It's like dark gobbledygook. Basically just like basically tells them like, hey, it's like there's a reason you shouldn't have asked.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like I can respect that and all. But I can't.
Yeah, going ahead. I was just going to say, overall, I thought it was a decent episode, but I'd like to hear some of your criticisms of it.
What I can't respect though is Boimler, just like just trying to butt his head against. It's like, hey, it's like, no, I should be in the system. You do remember me, computer. That kind of stuff. Just the idea that this is something that could have been easily solved. He just gone to like engineering or wherever and gotten his status like reinstated. I mean, it's just like it doesn't. His whole plot doesn't seem to
easy fix. Is that what you're trying to say?
It's an idiot plot in the sense that he could have easily like solved this if he just like gone to the right person and just like and solved it. Or like maybe they could have made some, if they wanted to, like just like, hey, if Bowman like was going to like try and like like say, hey, I do exist and all, like whether they had tried to like do something with it, just basically show like, okay, so how far, so Boimler, if you're not recognized by the computer, how far can you get in it? That kind of thing. If someone on security basically posed that question to him, and he just like said like, hey, I bet I can get to the bridge and get Tom Paris to sign my plate. That would have solved it. It's like it would have like made it into like a logical like like security problem for them for the Cerritos to solve. Because I think that when the series works best is like, it's obviously a lot of stuff they do here is very silly, but it also still makes sense, as part of like a standard Star Trek plot.
Well,
so
we got to remember though that in the previous episode there was a Boimler clone from the transport. So maybe they didn't deep dive in that because they're still trying to keep us, the audience, at a mystery. Like, is this the actual Boimler? And maybe like the computer didn't necessarily recognize that Boimler because it's not actual like real Boimler.
Except Boimler was just like, this is like Boimler just like butting his heads against the it's like against like what the computer had basically said. It's like he says like the computer said like you're not part of the ship, and so like the smart thing to do would have been just to go to like whoever's in charge of that and just get that sorted out. But he didn't do that.
So you're absolutely correct. It also highlights something that had happened before. So he was created essentially, well, maybe him or the other guy was created essentially as a clone through a transporter accident. Mm-hmm. Now, in that there is a Deep Space Nine episode that's kind of a follow-on to the Riker episode where he, where after he meets himself.
Where all this is coming from.
Yeah, well, basically, what happens is that Riker visits Deep Space Nine. He's like, "Hey, can I see that? Let's go and see that fancy ship of yours." And he goes and sees this Defiant, and he basically steals it because he's really his brother. But he passes every security check on there, so the computers recognize him as being, a commander on the Enterprise and all this other stuff. In reality, he's not, because he's a perfect clone. He's not like a clone. He's like well, I guess the real thing. So,
so basically, you're saying that this like episode kind of fails even alongside the standards that Deep Space Nine episode established.
Well, basically, they're saying like, "Wow, our security controls are so loose with this clone." Maybe Riker knew that, and he's like, "You know what? Maybe we ought to just like get rid of that." Of course, Boimler already knew about this because I guess it was Starfleet record or some shit like that. Anyway, so I agree with you. Like, it's an easy plot hole to fix. And maybe that's the joke right in that episode. It's I don't know. I'm not gonna say like, you know what? I've thought the same thing. I'm like, this is a pretty easy thing to fix. It's like, your password doesn't work essentially. So reset your password. You're good to go. I mean, essentially that's what we're talking about.
Well, you gotta remember, John, like cybersecurity practices back in the late 90s, early 2000s were a lot looser compared to today. So maybe, maybe the Cerritos is like, got HBSS or something, just tighten it up so that way they don't let any loose cannons on the ship.
Yeah.
But the end result here is that it makes Boimler look like a complete idiot. It's like Anna Kazon, which
which like triggers Tom Paris, right? And you're like, why would a Kazon be on the bridge? He'd be by himself, and what, and this triggers him. So there's a couple of things on that. It's like, okay, I get it. So, I thought, overall it was still entertaining. It's mostly an entertaining episode. So, and regardless, it's good stuff. But so was there anything else that you noticed about that? That's a pretty good observation, by the way. I want to point out.
I like the fact that what was the security guy who came back from the dead? Like what was his name?
Jax.
I like the fact that they just brought him back because it's like I liked him from the first season. It's like and I'll admit that like even if like they're just like bringing him back in a completely hand waving way, it's like it was at least like pretty entertaining. It's like the way they did it.
And I wanted to ask you guys that, like, as we were watching it, like, is that something that holds true in the series where, like, maybe upper officers, like, that quote unquote died, or you thought that they died, come back from the grave almost?
So there's one really, really famous example that literally spawned a secondary movie. That was Spock.
True.
This is true.
And so it's sort of like, so there's something to the, it's like, oh, no one really stays dead anymore. But hey, I mean, I kind of think it's funny and quite clever of them to do it this way.
Death in Star Trek does kind of work the same way as like Marvel and DC. It's just that it's like they use it a lot more sparingly.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
It's like Cisco is still dead, from what I understand, right?
Well,
for now,
is kind of a relative term. He's not really dead. He's just translated. So I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. There's just like, he I don't know. Use whatever language you want to there, but he's not the same person he was before. He's now one of the aliens. Okay, so he lost his physical body. Does that mean he's dead? He's out there. I don't know.
just like that cult guy from the previous season who transcended
oh yeah. Yeah, he's not really dead. He's just transcended. Yeah, exactly. Thank you.
That guy.
He's ascended is the word. Ascended. So essentially, ascension. Yeah. Same thing with Cisco.
But if that cult guy ever comes back from season 1 of Lower Decks, so like he's gonna have some beef with Tendi.
I'd have to say that though, Jack's just throwing him back like that, and it's like, oh yeah. And I was like, you know what? Cool, fine.
And
they don't have to. It's like it's never been done like what he just said, but he's like, yeah. He just kind of explains it almost nonchalantly, and it's funny.
I want to know what he told Rutherford in detail. Like, that when you die, there's like a black mountain, and then then it kind of numbs out, and then you just see Rutherford's face, and it's like, damn, dude, like, what did he tell him?
I think that as far as like what he told him, I think that was like just enough information to make it funny. So like that works for me. It's like if you're going to like be vague about just like, how did he come back? Then, like, this is just the right amount of detail to give.
Yep. So anything else on that episode, Jason? I'm just curious. You didn't have any other criticisms, or just that one? That's the big glaring like plot hole for you.
I don't know. It's like the bit with the stuff with Mariner and Tendi. It's like, I liked what they were doing right there. It's like, their whole like, hey, we've never teamed up before. This is like a glaring oversight. Yeah, but like I liked what they were doing together, right there. But at the same time, though, it's also kind of like sitcom stuff. It's like the whole, oh my god, we broke this thing, now we got to fix it. We've seen that before, and also it's like, it was interesting to see like, hey, like they're gonna like come against the Nausicaans, the race that shows that that Ron Moore is like the greatest closet weeaboo like in Star Trek history. So
I totally get that. Yeah, you're right. I mean, I think maybe it's probably an episode of tropes. I mean, it's like, it's funny. It's kind of funny though.
Yeah, but I will say that like at least like Beckett and Mariner's like adventures together did do a job like bringing them closer together. It's like, and I felt like this is less of an idiot like plot line than Boimler's was. It's like I definitely appreciated that.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So cool. Then we got the second episode, which was, I don't remember the title of it was, but essentially it starts out with
like something like Mugato or something.
yeah, Mugato. Oh yeah, because it can be pronounced 8 different ways. So Mugato, yeah. So there's this
Mugato,
episode.
Mugato, right?
What's that?
Was it Mugato?
Mugutu. they pronounced it like several ways in the episode because they kind of made fun of that, and I don't know if that's how it happened in the original series episode or not, because I haven't seen that one in a long time. It's almost ridiculous because
Mugato Gumato. That's
is that what it is? Is that
I'm
what
looking
it
at
is?
IMDb right now. So.
Yeah. So like in the original series, it was a white gorilla costume with a horn stuck on top. It was so cheesy looking, man. But this episode's funny, I guess. It's also funny. It's by the way, I found both the episodes entertaining. I thought they were
agree.
fun. Yeah, they're
Again,
both fun for me.
I have criticisms, but I still enjoyed watching this. Like, I mean, I wouldn't have watched more episodes of the series on my own time if I didn't like it.
Yep. So in this one, yeah, what I liked about the opening is that they were playing Ambu Jitsu, which is basically, and I told you guys this is like they had the center character of the Sei, which is like Urusei Yatsura. They basically in the original, it's like season 2. It's like season 2 or 3, a really early episode in Next Generation. Where they had Riker and his father basically fighting in this ring like that. The cool thing is the writers actually had them put like the characters of Urusei Yatsura on there, so like they're written on the ring, and then the centerpiece is that. So that's pretty cool. Pretty cool little reference. I think that's all I cared about that opening, outside of the fact that it starts off the conspiracy that Mariner is like, what? This
and that we were also all giant weebs here at Saturday Morning Sages.
Yeah, pretty much. So yeah, fascinating. And let's see here. So yeah, they kind of have to take care of this whole Mugatu, which everyone pronounces it, and the weird bartender who plants the seed in their head that and there's some jokes there too, right? So it's like, talks about Mariner and like her
he thinks like, like she's like a special secret agent who killed everyone on her own on her old ship.
He's a little bit of a tinfoil hat wearing kind of conspiracy theorist, but he's been fed these these falsehoods to believe,
as we'll find out later on.
And he, like, it was funny the way he was kind of like presenting these rumors, because he reminded me of like the old farmer from like Pet Cemetery, like, Roma has it up there, it's just hilarious.
Yep. He's just like the crazy bartender you see in like every episode where you see like, hey, like he's like, oh, it's like, like this character's like, she's like so special and all. It's like, and let me tell you why. It's like that kind of thing.
Now, I will sell you something. Well, I don't know. What else did you think of this episode? Put criticisms forward, your praises, your complaints, whatever.
It's like if Boimler and Rutherford were real friends of Mariner, then they would have asked her about this beforehand. But also, like, they've been working with her for so long that you think they would have like a pretty good idea of her capabilities. And in fact, I don't know why they're surprised by her capability. It's like in the first place, because she's always demonstrated that she's really capable in any situation. So the fact that she was able to like hand them their asses in the first place, shouldn't have surprised them. And as is the fact that hey, that she made that lucky catch, it's like, oh, okay, that's Mariner. It's like, she's like that much better than us. It's like, and we've established this throughout the entire first season as well. So just the idea that hey, it's like it's more idiot plotting in the sense that hey, Mariner. It's like, I heard, so that crazy bartender like who works in 10 Forward. It's like he says that you're like a secret special agent who killed all their previous crewmates. It's like, what? No, it's like, I just told that guy just because I didn't want to deal with any riffraff like on this ship. That's there you go. It's like, I mean, that's all you need to do for this, but they didn't, and so it's like we get a whole like plot out of it. But I still like the bit where Rutherford and Boimler, it's like like solve the episode's problem by like using their brains and the it's like and the stuff that they acquired by playing their weird trade ship game.
So in this episode, there is the A plot, and then there's the B plot, and then there's the I'm gonna call it 0.5 plot because there's a little piece to it.
Oh, because it's like it ties into
end.
like the main plot. It ties into
Yeah.
the main plot, but it's still kind of like part. It's still like similar from it.
Yeah, it had to do. I mean, you don't even figure it out until the end about
Yeah.
when her husband calls her up. It's just
Always
this is
good to
damn
see
going
Phil
on.
Lamar. It's like show up and say like, hey, it's like good to see you, man.
Yeah, love Phil Lamar is great. So, but yeah, Myron, also you thought this was a pretty decent episode all around.
Yeah, I actually liked both episodes. I thought they were both fun because in the previous episode, we get to see Mariner and Tendi, go on an adventure together. And if you really think about it, like even though all four of them are good friends and they all work on the lower decks, we always see Tendi and Rutherford, kind of split off and do their own adventure or be part of the adventure on story B, and then we see Mariner and Boimler together on story A, and that's always been kind of the formula. And we got the switch up in these recent two episodes that we just watched. We saw Tendi and Mariner have an adventure together, and then in this current episode we see Boimler and Rutherford kind of go off on this venture together. And I kind of do agree with Jason, about you guys should have known, like, that, Mariner was this way or known these things about her. But realistically, I don't think that Rutherford or even Tendi really know that much about like Mariner in that manner. I mean, she tends to kind of keep herself more reserved and kind of closed off. And like even to Boimler, she might open up to him more, but even he's in the dark in certain things. Like when she said, you guys didn't know, like I served on these other ships. Well, she's mentioned before on how to, at least to Boimler, on how she's been kicked off and served on these other ships and how much experience she has. Every time she's demonstrated this type of badassery, she'd always say, oh, I picked this up on this ship, or, oh, this is like the time when I served, with this person, or, oh, this is when I interacted with Klingons. Like that type of experience or story, she's always seemed to have explained that to Boimler and nobody else. And so like I feel like moving forward, we're going to start to see a little bit more openness between all four characters to the point where like we might see Boimler go on an adventure with Tendi and Mariner go on an adventure with Rutherford, and they kind of get to know each other instead of like all four of them or a pair of them kind of go off and do their own things. And so like, again, this was another fun episode in which we see like, the women in the previous episode, like be more badass and have a kick-ass adventure. And we see the men in this next episode, like, kind of cower and don't know what to do, but then they're smart nerds, and how they get around the situation is come up with a business plan, a business plan to exploit the, I guess, weaknesses of, I forgot what's Quark's race. What are they called?
Ferengi.
Oh, they're Ferengi.
Ferengi, like knowing what they're about, using that strength to exploit their weakness and resolve that issue. So I thought it was kind of funny, like how
that was pretty great.
I was like, oh, they made a bazooka out of wood, but then it was like, nah, it was a projector.
Yeah.
To pitch a business plan on how like everybody could win in this situation if you just change your perspective. So
Yeah.
like
it was great how it played like to the Ferengi strengths, and it also kind of reminds me like how it's like just how like the business devoted like that species is, especially like after like watching that seeing the that bit in D69 where like Quark pitches the this Vulcan about how like, hey, like you can buy peace at a bargain price. It's like at the latest Midnight Madness.
Yep. And
Mhm.
and to your earlier statement, Jason, about like, about like how her friend should know, like how Mariner is, like
Or at least be able to ask her about it, you know?
or being able to ask her about it. Like I just feel like Boimler should know a lot of this. And the points that you brought up, I'm still hung up on the fact that this isn't season one Boimler. I'm still hung up on that fact that, like, yeah, like the Boimler we got is the transport clone. And we'll see. I mean, there's still, more episodes to pursue, but I like from these past two episodes, there's just little clues in there that just tell me, like, okay, there's gonna be a M. Night Shyamalan like twist coming up. And obviously, we've been presented with two Boimlers, and what we've been going through with now, as far as like, our adventures with this Boimler, I don't think it's our Boimler. That's just my
Well,
theory.
there may be something that comes out of that later in this season. I don't know, and I hope.
Or, like you said, it's
wrong.
like season one Boimler. So, it's
Yeah,
like,
that's right.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. I mean, there's looking ahead, there's like 8 episodes on Paramount Plus, and there's 2 more within the season. So, there's still more to be had. But again, I have to say, like, this is a good animated series. Like, taking away, Star Trek, from the title. Like, I love the animation. I love the comedy beats within this series. Not as vulgar as, like, something like Rick and Morty or South Park,
Oh.
but it is good. Fun, clean humor, and it does have like a lot of jokes hidden within there that kind of like maybe fly past like younger audiences' heads, but we get it. So
Oh, by the
yeah.
way, that projector that Rutherford and Boimler built, did it look familiar to you, Jason?
unfortunately, no.
It's all right. Don't worry about it. So
Is this like a
basically-
Deep Space? Is this the
So-
Deep Space Nine reference?
no, it's an original series reference. And I thought, like Myron said, oh, they fashioned a bazooka out of a piece of wood. I was like, yeah, well, he was kind of straight up on that, because that's
Was this when like Kirk
supposed to
fights
imply.
Gorn?
That's it. You got it. Because he basically, it looks exactly like it. And so these aliens, when he's fighting the Gorn, they say, oh, you can make a weapon on, there's enough things for you to find, and the Gorn, I think he makes I don't know, he makes like a knife or something like that. And then but Kirk knows gunpowder, so he makes a gun, a cannon, and he doesn't kill the Gorn, but he severely injures it, and it looks just like this. And by the way, that was actually something that, and if you remember the Mythbusters, they actually tested this to see if they could do it,
And did it
to
work?
see if it's possible. Well, not straight up, but they
Okay.
did get it to work, I believe. So, because it's like, oh, it's close, but it's of course creative writing, right? And it's like, hey, you should be able to make a gun if you just mix these things together, right? And it's like, all right, or gunpowder and a projectile and all this other stuff. I
It
think
should
they had to-
work in theory.
yeah, well, they really had. I think, and I haven't seen that episode like in years, but I think the Mythbusters basically had to really reinforce that thing, because like just bamboo, like, because that's what it was just gigantic bamboo hollow tube. It's not enough to like, it's just that I think the chamber would explode. There's just it's more like a bomb than it's more than a gun, or a cannon, if you will, which basically that's essentially, it's probably closer to a cannon, plus he had to shove like diamonds, like he found diamonds, and he shoved that in there as the projectile, so I think
But
whenever they're intrigued with the problem, they kind of like, well, it would work if you could do this, and this. So they did do that kind of cool stuff. But yeah, there's that.
MacGyver would have made it work.
Yeah.
I would make it work with bubble gum and a paper clip, bro. So you know how it is.
Richard Dean Anderson would have got that shit working.
RDA himself. Yeah, that's right. So all in all, though, just enjoyable episodes. I kind of, it's good stuff, and the whole Mugato thing is just kind of crazy. I don't know. It's just funny stuff.
So on a side note,
Also, and Tendi, trying to scan everyone, and then the doctor being the last one that needed to be scanned. Kind of good stuff too.
Yeah, it's like I like the doctor. The stuff with the doctor is great. But I'm generally a cat person. It's like I think that a lot of the stuff that they do with her is generally fun. It's like, and it's the right side of entertaining.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, she is a cat. So it's like, we see her as like a humanoid, cat person and as a doctor, but then like, when her instincts kick in when she needs that, box to kind of like cuddle and curl and do cat shit. And then, obviously like, running away from an exam with her cat like reflexes, like it is pretty hilarious, like how they portray that.
Mm-hmm.
But on a side note, I think John mentioned this before. Like I've been seeing commercials and trailers for that new animated series called Star Trek Prodigy.
Mhm.
And I guess that might be like, not comparing, Star Wars or Star Trek, but it might be Star Trek's version of like a Rebels or a Clone Wars, where it's a CG animated series appealing to a younger or current generation. I really don't know what to think of it just yet. I do, from the trailers, I do think it is a little kiddie, but I will, I will check it out just to kind of like, get my perspective on this. But I feel like this series, Lower Decks, it just, it appeals to like old and new fans alike. I do feel like it's more geared towards, our generation, like older fans, because it does kind of have that kind of like asinine kind of humor, which I love about it. And I hope that, so far with 2 seasons, I hope it's successful enough to where like, yeah, we're going to renew this for, 2 more seasons or even longer. And hopefully, with the power of Paramount Plus and the exposure, like maybe Star Trek will kind of get that revival slash, jumpstart that it needs to kind of like appeal to a newer generation. Because we got our previous trilogy of movies, from JJ. Well, I don't know if JJ Abrams did all 3, but
he didn't.
He didn't. So like the Chris Pine movies, basically. That was kind of like that new jumpstart to a more current generation. And I know, John, you mentioned that you rewatched the original one, the first one recently. But it seems like the franchise has been stagnant until, CBS All Access and Paramount Plus started doing these newer series, which
because they figured that, hey, it's like Star Trek has a dedicated enough fan base, they'll follow it anywhere, including to a streaming service.
Right, but from what you guys are telling me and other fans too, it's like I don't really care for Picard or what's the other one? Like the main line
Discovery.
One? Discovery, like Discovery is okay, but it's not what I'm looking for. Oh. And I'm hoping for the sake of like the Star Trek brand that nail is hit on the head to really bring out more content. And so far, to me, from an outsider, so to speak, like this is good content that I have enjoyed watching, to where like, yeah, I do want to go to the back catalog and start looking at that stuff, but I would like to see more newer projects that really like really represent the franchise like really well, that you guys speak so highly of.
So in Prodigy, it's like anything else. I'm just I'll watch it, and if it catches my interest, I may continue watching it. I did give both Star Trek Picard and what was the other one? Oh, Star Trek Discovery. Kind of, I gave them a fair shake, and I really didn't like them. So and your mileage may vary if you watch them, but I didn't like the serialized, like 100% serialized storytelling, nor a lot of the adherence to like some of this. And they've got another television series coming called Strange New Worlds. That's going to be interesting itself. But, Lower Decks for me is just kind of like, it's like popping candy, man. I mean,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
watch it and I just like I'm entertained by it. It's fine. I don't have a heavy commitment to watch it, but it makes me want to watch it. So that I like that, you know. Outside of, you know, it's like, oh well, you know, I needed to find out what happens. Like, you know, I mean, as illustrated in this set of episodes, like, hey, Jax came back. What's this explanation? There's no explanation. He just came back. All right, let's just go with that. So, yeah, good stuff, man. So, yeah, look forward to watching some more of these with you guys and commenting on them as we go forward. And I know that Jason, you've been peeking ahead, but that's all
Yes,
right.
I
man.
have.
So, but hey, don't say anything. Don't spoil it for us. We will continue to do this until the season's end, and then you know, we'll see how these you know, these other things, you know, will pan out. But I think we're committed to the end of this. You know, continue to watch these.
Cool,
Yeah,
definitely. Yes.
and I was gonna peek ahead too, but then I got sidetracked with Beavis and Butthead and Double Dare. And
Of course.
and I'm like, man, I was like, man, Paramount Plus is the shit. Like, it's got like, man, all the old school jams on here. So I mean, yeah.
I'll have to give it a third and a fourth over. But like I said, like you were just talking about, you know, rewatching that. By the way, you know, watching that Star Trek movie, the J.J. Abrams one, I can tell you, it still holds up fairly well, actually. You know, there's some things that I did not particularly like about it, but it's like, you know, he's got this alternate universe thing, and as I was watching it with my girlfriend, she made a comment. She says, like, you know what though, Star Trek kind of does this too much. I'm like, what? The whole alternate universe thing. I'm like, yeah, it's the thing.
This is true.
You know,
I'm like,
they rarely
okay.
commit to it.
Yeah.
you know who's worse with that is Marvel and DC.
Yeah, but and in some ways, I'm like, well,
But you're talking about like Marvel and DC comics, not like the cinematic universe yet.
No, but it's bound to happen.
Have you been but you haven't been watching What If though? So
I haven't been watching that, but
yeah, it's like if you want to make that argument, you should watch What If.
So I was watching Shartimus Prime. He's a guy on YouTube. You know who he is, Myron.
oh yeah, I know, sure.
And he was reviewing the Doctor Strange figure from the What If. And he was just kind of talking about it, and he was like, yeah, he's gonna like I don't remember what, I think it was like, what if Doctor Strange was a little bit more self-serving? I don't know. I have no idea. I don't, what was the deal behind that one? Just give me the plot behind that one. Like, what if what?
What if Doctor Strange lost his heart instead of his hands?
Okay. All right, got it. Okay, now it comes into play. I got it. So, and he was like, yeah, it's kind of an interesting thing. But is that an animated series?
It
Yes.
is.
Okay,
Because like they're only going to get like some of these actors back like in voice acting form. They're not going to get them to like be like in like a live action thing for this.
Gotcha. Okay, so all right, that's kind of interesting. Anyway, huh?
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I'm just saying, you know, aside from watching Venom today, you know, I was like very burnt out on MCU material. So yeah, I haven't jumped into the what ifs, and shoot, I haven't even watched like Loki yet. And so eventually I will hop back in that. I did take a hiatus from like a lot of the MCU stuff recently, but I would definitely like to check that out, because, you know, kind of going to John's point about Shartimus Prime and reviewing figures, like I did see like another line for some Marvel Legends like Spider-Man figures, and those are the only ones I've kind of like stayed on top on when it comes to like my Marvel Legends collecting, because let's face it, like there's so many dope figures. I can, but responsibly I can't afford them all. So you know, I'm definitely excited about, you know, Symbiote Spider-Man and Shocker and these upcoming figures. But
Yeah,
you know, for a while it's like, you know, it's almost like too much of a good thing. Like, you know, a lot of the stuff that I've wanted as a kid, like a live action Iron Man and a live action Spider-Man, we got it. And now it's just like that seems to be like 80% of the movie market to where like, oh man, I just needed a break, go back and watch some artsy fartsy films and some some kind of like reality dramas and stuff like that, because it's like, man, I love the CG and the gloss, but it's like, I think after like Falcon and Winter Soldier, which was dope, don't get me wrong, I loved it, but that just burnt my brain, after
The
watching
glamour just the shine just kind of wears off of after a while, and you kind of like got to reset yourself a little bit. I get it. Like,
yeah.
I watched this Star Trek movie, and I was like, man, there's just so much going on here. It's just like it's just like one after the other. This is one of my original complaints about it, is like it's just the pacing is just so hyper. It's like it's like it's like a movie made for people with attention deficit disorder. It's just one thing right after another, and I'm just going like, it doesn't give you even a chance. It rarely gives you a chance to even think, even in the scene where Chris Pine, meets the original Spock, and Spock mind melds with him to kind of tell him the story. Even that is like just kind of like, it's kind of hypered up. It's like, oh, okay. It can't be just straight up. Just like, let me just mind meld with you. Of course, that lots of flash, lots of like, action, things like that. It's just like, it's never ending. Like, there's people running all over that shit, man. It's just like, like Chekhov's running and Kirk is running, and like the Doctor's running, and like
we gotta energize the character.
Exactly. Yeah. Yes, to quote Mr. Plinkett or whatever. But yeah, no, that's right. It's like everybody's running or getting. Yeah, it's like, yeah. So
it's a different age in movies and a different age in storytelling. Like, you got to get to the point or get to the action like quick. You can't have that slow burn build up to where like once the payoff hits, it's a very hard hitting, satisfying payoff. But
yeah,
I think those days are kind of gone.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it just depends, right? It's like sometimes I like a slow moving,
and they're gone if you're not doing it right.
Right.
But then there's other times where it's like I don't mind it. And by the way, the pacing, I'd have to say this: the pacing of Lower Decks is fine. I can actually live with the pacing of it. It's 30 minutes or 20 minutes plus some, like 20, 25 minutes. Well, like it's perfectly fine.
Yeah, like, I think it's like 25 minutes each episode.
Yeah. So if we think about that in terms of like 1989, like Star Trek Next Generation, like that's almost, let's think about it this way, because they had, if you talk about commercials, those episodes were about 42 minutes, so gave you about anywhere from 15 to 17 minutes worth of commercials in an hour. Lower Decks is very close to that, by the way. It's like, it's not quite there, but it's close enough, it's where they can like write in like A plot, B plot, and like have a slightly entertaining, like little show. It's like, oh, not bad. So,
well, when you think about it, I'm going old man in the clouds over here, but that's what our generation kind of grew up with. We grew up with like 30-minute, including commercials, 30-minute shows that would convey its story. And if you think about nowadays, like shows like Adventure Time or Teen Titans Go, you notice those segments are like 11-minute cartoons. Like, they have to be short, ADHD, like bursts of like get to the plot, wrap up the story, add all those comedy beats all in one session. Like they have to get there like a lot faster, where like when people who watch a lot of those shows, and I'm saying like a younger audience, I feel this way just because I get it from watching those shows myself. Like when you watch like a slower burn, show like a Lower Decks, like it's like, oh dude, stop with this bickering, just get to the damn point. Like I think that goes to like watching and growing up with a lot of these cartoon series that might have 2 episodes in one 30-hour block, but each cartoon episode is like 10-11 minutes.
Yeah, that's kind of an interesting observation, though. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's like, okay, well, I have no time for hey, the plot to move over 7 episodes of like, Star Trek Picard or something like that. I mean, I mean, and remember, this is the generation. It's like, hey, Instagram this and like, remember Vine, and it's like, oh, I've got like 30 seconds of a clip. Ah, that's entertaining. Move to the next one. Ah, that's entertaining. It's like
Yep.
we've literally trained like social media platforms have literally trained like our next generations to like not give a crap past 15 minutes.
Yep. Instant gratification. Yep.
Yeah. And so it's like, all right, yeah, I must be the old fogey, like yelling at, old man yells at cloud. You got it, man. It's like, I like my plots to develop in a particular order. No, I don't think that that's dead, by the way. I just think that it's like, okay, not every, there is this other medium. There's another way of telling the story that some people like, that maybe some of the younger ones do, but it's not like plot and literate, and the way literature rolls is like dead. Nah, it
No,
isn't.
it's I don't think it's dead either, but it's not the majority as it used to be. Sitting down and watching like a 30-minute show or even like an hour-long drama.
Mhm.
You could see dramas for like, 30 minutes now, or even like a 30-minute show, for 10 minutes. And sometimes like, and I'm not sure about you guys, but I mean, there's a lot of times where I get busy with work or we're doing other things in our lives to where like I might not have time to even sit down and watch like a 30-minute show, but I want to kick in some type of entertainment for like a short spurt. And so that's why I might like turn to YouTube and watch, some little videos or whatnot. And I've noticed myself, like I started watching Squid Game. Everyone's been talking about Squid Game for the past like week and a half, 2 weeks, and I started watching it yesterday. But those are hour-long episodes, and it's like, damn, dude, like I don't have time for this shit. And so, like, I watched like one episode on Thursday and one episode on Friday, and even then, I had to take like little spurts. Like, okay, let me watch like 20 minutes. All right, I got to cook dinner and go do this, then I'll come back to it. And so, like, our time, obviously, in this day and age, I feel like, our society is a little bit more, go, 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 fast pace. And how we spend our time, on entertainment has been stretched across a lot of different mediums compared to how we grew up. Back in the day, all we had was either television and maybe Nintendo or Sega if you had those luxury items. Now everybody has the internet and has decent, like, I would say the majority of Americans have decent internet. We all have, some type of smartphone. And so there's a lot more ways to ingest entertainment that calls to our attention. And so when developing a lot of these, shows and content, you have to have something that's going to grab people's attention, whether it's going to be like 5 to 10 minutes or, if you want to develop, if you have a bigger budget, that's when you can develop like longer timed content.
Yeah. Well, when you have sites like TikTok, it's like, yeah, well, hey, that's not you better start shortening that shit up, man. Well, see, like I said, it's like it just depends upon the generation, right? And and like what they like. If some people like that, then they like that. And if they don't, then oh well.
Yeah.
But
a lot
yeah,
of variety out there.
Yeah, I still think that this is this series is still good. It's 25 minutes. I just looked at it. So, that's like 35. So it's about like about 12 to 14 minutes shorter than a Next Generation episode, but that's still kind of significant. You can get enough in there.
Yep.
So anyway, hey, I look forward to talking with you guys about this next time, when we watch episodes 5 and 6. All right.
Sounds good.
So we'll sign off for now. Talk to you guys later.
Later.
Good weekend, kiddies.
Go get your cereal.